All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now, Michael Chandler is pulling out of the Gaethje fight. Now, it's not official yet, but I'm telling you right now, that is what's going to happen. And he also just threw me the underhanded softball of the century as it relates to me making content, because this is a topic I know a lot about. As a matter of fact, I might even say I know more about this than anyone. Or as much about this as any person. Now, what's going on is Michael Chandler is responding to Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, saying that there's no one allowed indoors in New York City without proof of vaccination. Okay. Now, obviously, first major politician in the country to talk about vaccine mandates of that nature. Like, you just straight up, oh, if you want to be in New York City, you literally can't go to a restaurant unless you validate that you've been COVID vaccinated. Okay. Now, I would imagine that there's a lot of people that are recoiling in their chairs right now. They're like, dude, is he gonna argue against COVID vaccines? Is this guy crazy? Is he gonna go on an MMA channel and jump into the vaccine conversation? Yup. But I'm not gonna argue against him. I'm gonna jump into the conversation. And guess what? I challenge anyone on either side to tell me I'm wrong. That's gonna be my challenge to you for this video. I'm going to talk about whether this is okay or not, and I don't care which side you're on. I bet you that neither of you guys is going to disagree with me after I tell you about my story. So yeah, I've got a relevant story, like in terms of this kind of thing impacting my family directly. So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. So here we go. So Michael Chandler said that he is not going to get the COVID vaccine in time for the Madison Square Garden card. And basically, he's like, I don't know if the fight's on. He hasn't even signed the bout agreement anyway. I didn't even realize that. I don't think anybody realized that. But he hasn't signed the bout agreement. But also, as soon as Bill de Blasio was like, yeah, you're going to have to be, mandatory vaccinations in New York City, Chandler's like, I'm not going to be vaccinated by then. So, and he made a really, non-hyperbolic statement, to be candid. If you're going to come out and publicly say, look, I'm not going to be vaccinated. You know what's interesting, though? Isn't Colby Covington on that card? I'd be very curious to know if Colby Covington took the shot, only just because you know what side of the political aisle he's on. I don't understand how this became a political issue, like every single thing in the world. Jeez, this is the best topic anyone has ever given me on Jesse on Fire, ever. And this is, in case I haven't plugged it yet, this is what Jesse on Everything always sounds like. But now it's on the MMA side, so I get to do it here. So yeah, anyway, Colby Covington, if you were going to kind of look and guess people who might not be vaccinated, he would certainly be high on the list just because of, what side of the aisle he's on, Masvidal, etc. And he's headlining the Madison Square Garden show. So we'll see, we'll find out. But Michael Chandler, if you're going to make a statement like, hey, I'm not going to take the shot by then, that's a pretty hyperbolic issue, right? And so saying that you could have some fallout. Well, the way that he structured it, I don't think it does at all. He said, look, my kid vaccinated all the way up. We do flu shots, measles, MMR, all that stuff. He's like, this one's not FDA approved. I'm going to wait until it's FDA approved. If it gets FDA approved between now and the fight, then sure, yeah, I'll get it. But I'm not going to do it before it's FDA approved. It's in experimental phase, and that makes me nervous. So, that's his position. And listen, in case you can't tell where this is going, I certainly support his right to choose, right? His right to choose. Here's the thing. I hear people talk about this issue all the time, and I'm kind of like, okay, why? I don't actually, there are a lot of people that are kind of in the right to choose thing, but anyone who's saying don't go get it to other people, if you're telling other people what to do when it comes to the shot, it's like, dude, no, don't tell people what to do. That's all you need to, as a matter of fact, that's the only thing that matters. Just don't tell people what to do. If someone says they're going to go get the shot, don't be the guy that's all, hey, have you read this article? I think it's really important that you understand the risks here, and pull up some article from wherever, and it's like, here's this side effect or that side effect. It's like, no, you are not a doctor, okay? You're not a doctor. So don't tell people to not go get the shot. Also, you're not a doctor, okay? Don't tell people to go get the shot either, okay? It goes both ways. You, person, don't know shit about pharmaceuticals. You don't know shit about viruses. You don't know shit about fucking anything. As a matter of fact, you've never governed a city. You've never governed a state. You've never governed a country. You've never done a single lick of research about science other than read shit that came up in your fucking Yahoo News feed. So you, person that was going to tell people what to do, should stay in your lane of, I don't know shit about anything, and I probably shouldn't be telling anybody anything about anything, right? People can tell if you're well researched. Do you understand how easy it is for me to tell what kind of person I'm dealing with? Okay, like I was at a conference this week, and I was telling the people I work with, I was like, you guys ever seen The Social Network, or The Social Dilemma? And you have the scene where they show the person that's in the box and they're just there, and it like shows like what they're being, like the information that they're being fed, and then that dictate. Like, that is what everybody looks like to me. Well, not everybody. They're a rare group of people who actually think for themselves. But if you're a person like me who is completely immune to propaganda, I can people walk up and I literally, like, they're talking and I'm like, I know every opinion you have already. Like, just from the first sentence you said, I know every single opinion that you have. Okay, it's like, it's bizarre, right? But when it comes to this stuff, people that are in the box think that they can tell everybody things, and you're like, Jesus. Just get a little bit of self-awareness, dude. You have no science background. You don't know anything, okay? Now, in the event that, let's say hypothetically, like you had a parent that died of COVID, right? You could certainly share your experience there and be like, look, if you're discounting the danger of this virus, I'm gonna take issue with that. Like, I lost a parent to this virus, okay? Like, I lost a parent to this virus. So what do you think the odds are of me getting the vaccine? 100%. How about everybody in my family? 100%. Okay? So just stay the fuck out of it, right? Don't tell me not to get the shots simultaneously, okay? Don't tell me not to get the shots. You are completely right. Also, this is the part that no one seems to understand. Don't fucking tell me to get them either, dude, okay? Don't you fucking dare tell me what to do when it comes to that, okay? And just... here's the thing, right? This is the actual lay of the land when it comes to this issue. There is no one can argue with this because this is just a fact, okay? When you're governing a large group of people, right? You have a huge, the more people that you're governing, the more kind of challenging it is to have nuance in your rollouts of things, whether it's regulations or primarily just like rules that you make, right? Like if you ever go to a big company, you look through like an HR handbook and you're like, they're just like so rudimentary, like they make these dumb blanket rules. Doesn't this go without saying? It's because you have to govern this enormous group of people. It's like, you can't have a lot of nuance. So when it comes to the vaccine issue, it's very simple, okay? If you are actually a person who's at the top of the food chain and is trying to like look at society as a blob that you have to manage, you're like, okay, so would we be better off if everyone was vaccinated or no one was vaccinated? And it's like, okay, well and I'm talking about like with all vaccines, right? I'm not talking about COVID right now. I'm talking about like all vaccines. Like, well, obviously we'd be better if everybody's vaccinated. It's like, okay, so then what we should do is we should try to set the table as much as we can to where people will get vaccines. And in my opinion, without ever forcing anyone to do anything, because that's not the place of the government, dude, in my opinion. It's like, you can't like force people to do things. You can share the science, you can make suggestions, etc. Except in extraordinarily rare cases. COVID, in my opinion, not qualifying as one of them. So, but when you think about how you're going to govern that group, right? So think through this. They're like, okay, well, what about this, man? There obviously are some people who are going to have adverse reactions to these things because people have adverse reactions to fabric softener. Okay, if you put fabric softener on my clothes, I will literally explode in hives. Okay, fabric softener. Okay, now I would imagine there's like thousands, probably tens of thousands of people just like me, and so if you allow an unfettered amount of information to just flow out, okay. And 10,000 people were like, I tried this Dove fabric softener and my face exploded. How many people are going to get fabric softener? None, okay? None. Because they will assume that there's a much larger risk than is actually there. So when they set the table when it comes to vaccines, they keep that in mind. And the pharmaceutical companies who are profit incentivized, they leverage that against the government, right? So because there's a legitimate argument like this, it looks just like this. Okay, well, listen. Of course, there's going to be a small percentage of people that are going to have adverse reactions. If we don't do something to quell that information getting out, no one's going to get vaccinated. And guess what? That's correct. That's actually correct, okay? So I'm going to walk you through how you can end up with the most fucked up situation of all time, paved with good intentions, okay? So they go to the government, they say that. They go, look, like, no, and also, we know for sure that there's going to be whatever this tiny percentage is that's going to have serious complications from these things. And you know what? It makes it not financially viable for us to even produce them in the event that we're going to have to pay these huge payouts to people who get vaccine injured. So what I think we need to do is we need to set up a system whereby the very small group of people who have adverse reactions, which will be way smaller than the group that would have adverse reactions if no one gets vaccinated, and we'll deal with them separately. We'll deal with them different than we would people who got injured by a medicine normally, right? Because it's for the greater good, right? It's for the greater good, because we don't want that information to get out, because then people won't get vaccinated and then we'll have a much bigger problem. So greater good, we got to set up a different system. And so the system they came up with is in the event that you get injured by a vaccine, okay, then you would assume, how about this? Let's just say hypothetically that at the, I won't say one of these, I don't know, let's use Purdue. Let's use the Purdue Pharma, the ones who said that, bribed the FDA and got them to say that Oxycontin is not, habit forming. So Purdue Pharma, people of such upstanding, moral character. And they go, okay, well, we just found out that there was someone in the plant that actually intentionally poisoned a batch of vaccines, right? They poisoned them. And then so someone gets the vaccine shot, right? And it was an employee at the Purdue plant who actually injected poison on purpose into one of those vials. In any other situation, what's the settlement going to be? Purdue's going to pay millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? Because of course they would be liable. Someone at their company poisoned a vaccine which ended up in someone's arm, right? Okay, well, guess what? Because of this law, in that exact scenario, an employee of theirs poisons a vaccine shot. Guess what happens? You go to a secret arbitration process with the US government, and the government taxpayers, pay your settlement, okay? So what that means is Purdue has absolutely no financial liability when it comes to vaccines, okay? So in that scenario, a disgruntled worker poisons vaccines. Not that I'm not saying that would happen, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to give an extreme example to demonstrate the system that we live in, right? Purdue has no financial liability, none, zero. Okay, let's say 1,000 people got poisoned and killed. Let's say 1,000,000 people got poisoned and killed by this person. Okay, I mean, obviously that would be a huge breakdown in their quality control, but let's just say that happened. In the current system, 1,000,000 people would not only not get to sue Purdue, they would go to a secret arbitration, and to get their money, they have to sign an NDA. They can't talk about it. So there's that too. So if you get vaccine injured, you get the money when you sign an NDA that you cannot talk about it publicly. This is very easy for everyone to validate, and I'm explaining to you why they do it, okay? Okay, now, think like a pharmaceutical company, okay? I don't know, Purdue Pharma as an example, right? In case you guys haven't seen Crime of the Century, you can see how the opioid epidemic started with criminals running pharmaceutical companies who are profit incentivized, I have no problem with the profit incentive. It's just people need to have their fucking heads on straight and understand the world that they live in, right? Because you can't have a profit incentivized corporation and then also assume that they are always operating on the public good, right? I mean, you can't be that stupid. You can't be that stupid. No one can be that stupid. So you saw they have no financial liability, right? Now, let me just make another point about that. How do you think that car companies decide whether or not they're going to recall a car if they know about an issue? Let's say they know that 1 out of 10,000 Toyota Corollas, if you press the brake wrong, your car is going to light on fire and a person's going to burn to death, right? So how do you think they make a decision on whether to recall the car? They don't know which of the 10,000 it's going to be, but they know 1 out of 10,000 is going to light on fire, burn everyone in the car to death. Okay, you would assume they go, look, we did this many. I mean, that's like 500 cars or whatever. Don't get into me on the math. That's like 500 cars that could be filled with 500 people. They're talking 2,500 people that are going to burn to death. We know for sure. We should definitely recall them all, right? That's what a human being that had a conscience would do, right? That's not how a corporation makes a decision at all. They go like this. Okay, well, what's our financial liability on that? They go 500 cars, let's say on average have 2 people in the car, so that's 1,000 people. What would our liability be? Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so that would cost us, let's say, a $2 million settlement each time. They multiply it out, and they go, okay, well, how much would it cost for us to recall the cars? And they go, oh, it would be more expensive to recall the cars. And they go, all right, let them slide. Okay, that is how they make decisions. Okay, they would let people burn to death, thousands of people burn to death, as opposed to spend more money to recall the cars. If you think I'm making that up, then you live in a different world than the one that you actually live in, okay? So think about that as it relates to pharmaceutical companies that are making decisions on what chemicals and what processes to use when it comes to their vaccines when they have absolutely no financial liability no matter what happens, okay? So think about that. So this is the conversation that gets just buried in a mud of fucking morons talking about this issue, okay? And believe me, we haven't even gotten to my story yet. We haven't even gotten there because I need to set the table so you guys understand the actual playing field of what you're looking at, okay? Now, COVID, serious issue. Khabib's dad died from it, okay? If you think I'm coming on here like, oh, fucking, COVID, but we know what COVID is now, okay? We know what fucking COVID is. Okay? COVID is going to affect a small percentage. Most people won't even notice they have it or will have extraordinarily low symptoms, but the people that get it are gonna have really a hard time, okay? Like, I don't know if he would want me to say this on, okay, so like a really well-known mixed martial artist, head coach was hospitalized for COVID, like had a really serious time with it, like almost died. I know, you have Khamzat Chimaev, took him a fucking year to recover. I was in LA with a dude this weekend who was a, like an international, I was with the Navy SEAL guys and and I was with this dude who was a private contractor overseas, like doing shit. I mean, like, this guy's a fucking gangster, like a really well put together, like super good shape gangster. And he got COVID and he was knocked down he said he couldn't get better for 7 months. His point was actually, you know what? I'm not even getting that. He got rocked, okay? Super good shape. So like no one really knows what the hell, I mean, if people have comorbidities, it's really dangerous, whatever. But we know what it is, right? Like we know what it is. So, you know what? I'm going to get sidetracked. Let me get back to this thing, okay? So here's the deal. When it comes to whether or not to get the shot, you know what it is, right? Like we know what it is. We know what the risks are at this point. Okay, you know what the risks are. So when they come through with a new, experimental, non-approved, not FDA-approved vaccine, and you're making a decision on whether or not to get it, you understand the playing field if you've been paying attention, right? Like you're like, all right, well, I know 50 people that have gotten it. None of them got super sick. It makes me a little bit nervous about it not being FDA approved. I think I'm going to sit it out and wait until it's FDA approved. Like Michael Chandler said, is that an unreasonable position to take? Is that unreasonable? Okay. Because here's the thing, right? Keep in mind what happens if something serious happened with again, hypothetically, if something really serious happened with the long-term effects of that, who is going to be responsible for that? Okay? Who's financially responsible? No one. Okay? No one. No one involved with this is going to be responsible, right? And so what you're doing, yes, heroic, get it out there, give everyone the opportunity to take it, right? But if you're in an age group, if you decide you're going to wait till it's FDA approved, that is a completely reasonable thing to do, right? Vaccine mandates like this for an untested, not FDA approved thing, that is fucking insane, okay? Like that's insane. It's insane. You can't do that, dude. You can't mandate it. Like you cannot fucking do that. You can't tell a person they're like, oh, well, it's not mandated. It's just you can't go inside. You can't go into restaurants. You can't do, you can't do, like, let me go back to the profit structure, okay? So when you understand the profit structure, right? Like you understand that there's no liability for them to, if they get jammed up. Do you think that there's a possibility that maybe the forces that are driving things might not necessarily be a group of people that are all, listen, we need to do this for safety. Like it's critical for the safety of everyone that we do this. Because what you'd have to do in order to convince me of that is I would go, can you think of one time where the broader, the broader effort of pharmaceutical companies was really about the health and well-being of Americans? Because if you're trying to convince me that that's what their companies exist to do, no, okay? No, I don't believe it. They are there to address sickness, okay? Broader American health, no, they're there to make money, okay? And they make money by making us better in many different ways. But the structure itself, as it relates to vaccines, has a major, major gap. And the lack of liability for them and the inability for people to tell their stories publicly, that's a fucking problem for me. And I'll tell you exactly why, okay? So now we get to my story, okay? So I did not Actually, I'm going to tell you exactly as I experienced it, okay? So I have a daughter, right? My oldest daughter. You guys know who she is, Giselle. She's a jiu-jitsu champion. Well, she's not a champion, but she's incredible, right? Now, when she was a baby, we got her first round of shots. She got really fucking sick. Like, okay? Like, really sick. Now, like I said, am I a doctor? Nope. Am I a virologist? Nope. An expert in the science of vaccines? Nope. Not in terms of the actual inside science. No, I'm not. All I know is that stuck a shot into my kid, and then a healthy kid had an incredibly challenging reaction immediately afterwards that lasted for multiple days, and we were super fucking scared. That's what I know, okay? Now, is it possible it was a coincidence? Sure, yeah. I mean, if you're looking for catalysts that would cause something that was a pretty big thing, it's like, here, we're gonna inject this. Oh, and also, vaccine killed our dog. That's a fucking fact. That's a fact, okay? I'll tell you that story too. We had a tiny little Yorkshire Terrier, 5 pounds. We had to get a rabies shot for him because we needed to board it. They come out with this shot that's this big. I can't exaggerate how enormous this fucking shot was. And I was like, whoa, you're going to put that in him? He's 5 pounds, okay? 5 pounds. He's Gabrielle's dog. And they're like, yeah. They're like, I'm like, dude, that's the biggest shot I've ever seen. I was like, that's for a Yorkie? They're all, it's for all dogs. I was like, hang on. So you're saying that you put an equal amount of whatever's in that vial into a 5-pound dog versus a 140-pound dog? He's like, yeah. I was like, that makes no sense, dude. Like, but you know, he's a vet. He fucking shamed us, and he shamed us into it. Boom, hit him with it, right? Okay, so he put it right in the back of his neck, right there. Those things. Okay, those dogs lived to be 16. Ours died at age 9 and he died of cancer right there. Convince me that that's not from that. I mean, again, when I say for sure, what I mean is, if you strap me to a chair, waterboarded me for fucking 2 straight years, you're never going to convince me that it wasn't because of that, because it was literally cancer on the injection site where you took 100 times the vaccine. Now, that's an idiot doctor. That's a fucking idiotic industry that has no accountability. But that is an experience that we had even prior to having kids. So going into the vaccine process, a vaccine killed our fucking dog, right? So my kid gets very sick. So we are like, dude, like, Gabrielle's way more in, like, this department. She's like, all right, well, I don't know. What do you think we should do? Like, she's supposed to get like another 30 shots. I was like, I don't know. Let me just talk to a doctor, right? So we go talk to a doctor, okay? A doctor, an expert. So you know how I was like, you don't know shit about anything? Go talk to a doctor. So we went and did that, right? We went and talked to a doctor. And the doctor says, well, what's your family history with vaccines? And we're like, I don't know. I don't know. And they're like, well, here, why don't you go find out? Go ask your parents. Ask your parents what their history with vaccines is and what their experience with you guys was. And we could kind of like back into like any kind of genetic predisposition to problems with, vaccinations. We're like, all right. So we go and we talk to I go talk to my parents, and Gabrielle goes and talks to her mom. So right out of the gate, first question, so what's our experience with vaccines? They're all, you mean with me? We're like, I don't know. Yeah, start there. And my dad, well, I got Bell's palsy from a vaccine. And I was like, come again? And he's like, yeah, I got Bell's palsy from a vaccine. Now my dad's a doctor. He's a huge proponent of vaccinations. He's the absolute opposite of an anti-vaxxer. But he's like, if you're asking about adverse reactions, I had one. Like, I got Bell's palsy. It took a while. It kind of healed. But if something about flying gives it to him. Gabrielle's mom, Bell's palsy, also from a vaccine. Okay. It's where like half your face is like, okay. So that's question number 1. Have you ever had any negative reactions from a vaccine? Both of them, Bell's palsy. Okay. So then we were like, what about us? Like, what about with us? My mom is like, well, you are not fully vaccinated. I was like, I'm not? She's like, no. She's like, you were having really, really bad reactions to them. And so I just stopped. This is a long time ago where you could still do that. I was like, really? Gabrielle, same story. Okay. So from both sides of my daughter's genetic pool, were prone to negative, whatever, like complications. And so we brought it back to the doctor. We're like, look, man, like this. Yeah, like, you think I had a dog in this fight? You think I know anything about fucking vaccinations? I don't know shit about vaccinations. Nothing. Okay, I probably should have let off with that I don't know shit about vaccinations. All I know is my experience. So I know a lot about vaccinations when I don't know shit about vaccinations. Anyway, so we go to the doctor, and the doctor goes, listen, it's not safe to vaccinate the kid then, man. It's not going to be safe to vaccinate any of your kids because of this. Like, I mean, if you have it coming from both sides and both of you had bad reactions and both of your parents, like both sides' parents, unrelated, pulled you guys, like, it's not safe. Don't do it. Like, she writes us a medical exemption, and it's like, we're done. And we're like, okay, we live in California. I don't think anything, like, what this is an experience is a non-issue, because this was 8 fucking years ago. And then all of a sudden in California, there starts being this big push for mandatory vaccines, right? And we're like, what? Wait, they're going to make it mandatory? And it's like, don't worry, medical exemptions are outside of that. They're going to mandate it for everyone else. And I was sitting, Gabrielle's like, I don't like that. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is good. Like, this is a good thing for us, right? Like, this is a good, like our kids can't get vaccinated. This is a good thing that everyone else is going to get vaccinated. That's a good thing. There's nothing bad about this, okay? And Gabrielle does not see that the same way that I do, but it's just an objective fact. If my goal is to protect my kid, this is a good thing that everyone else is going to be vaccinated. I'm not getting into whether I think it's okay that they vaccinated or not, but like for us, it's good, right? Gabrielle's like, they're gonna end up making her get vaccinated. I was like, no, they're not. I was like, the entire premise of what they're saying is we're not good. Like, the reason we need to mandate it for everyone else is because some other people are medically compromised, so we want to protect them. That's the whole purpose of this thing that they said, right? The whole thing. Now, at this point, you started to see a big group of women, moms, start to uprise in California, and they were like, you can't mandate me to do this. My kid had this, like my first kid had this problem, right? So it was like this huge movement all of a sudden. It came out of nowhere when they started talking about this. And Gabrielle's, and they ended up passing it anyway, right? And I remember watching some of the women like speak before this thing, like they would go up to a podium and they would talk, and there's some kooks in there for sure. And then there were women who were just like, tell their story about their kid, and I'm like, they're gonna make that person, like, they're just not going to listen to that. Doesn't matter. They sign it into law, right? So about a year and a half later, they start talking about invalidating medical exemptions. And we were like, what? Because the whole thing, obviously, remember the profit incentive? Remember that? Okay. Remember the profit incentive? Now, if you can't figure this out, right? If you can't figure this out based on what your opinion is and which side of the aisle that you sit on, the Democrats take a lot of money from pharmaceutical companies. The Republicans don't, okay? At least in current times, right? They fund Democrats, okay? This is very easy for you guys to validate. This is not a left-right thing. And so if you find yourself on the left and you find yourself as a fervent supporter of anything vaccination, if you think that's because you have original ideas, you're a fucking idiot, okay? And if you're on the right and you're like anti-burp, and you think most of those are original ideas, unless you have a story like mine, I don't know, maybe it's original. But the point is, where the money goes, your brain goes, because you're in the fucking box, like we talked about, okay? Now, when they started talking about invalidating medical exemptions, I was like, that's insanity. If they have a 97% vaccination rate in California, why would they do that? That's 1,000, that's way beyond herd immunity. Why the fuck would they do it? And then you realize, they're making remember Toyota and the car, 2,500 people are going to burn to death, but this is going to be cheaper to do it this way. Okay. Passing laws as it relates to pharmaceuticals is a business to these people. Okay. Like, that's a fucking fact. If you don't understand that, you're too stupid to watch my fucking channel, and you turn it off. Actually, if you don't understand that legislation relating to vaccines is literally business to pharmaceuticals, then I'm serious. Like, you would have never made it this far because you're too stupid. I would have said something. You'd be like, "Hey, I think he's an anti-vaxxer." Okay. Speaking of that, we're going to come back to that. Branding everyone as anytime you see a label that gets put on people, that is an intentional thing from corporate interests almost always, right? Anti-vaxxer. Oh, that's an anti-masker. Shut the fuck up. Okay. You're going to tell me I fit into a fucking category when I finish this story? Anyway, so we're looking at like, this is just utter corrupt. This is complete corruption. This is literally just, they're like, well, we've got this many Democratic votes on, in our pocket, so we could probably get this passed. Let's say that doctors are creating fraudulent, medical exemptions. Let's just say that. We'll say like they're creating fraudulent medical exemptions, so we're going to take them away. We're going to just retract them, And you're like, okay, so that's what's going on? Can you tell me how many doctors have had their license suspended or in any way affected from writing a fake medical exemption? What's the number? You're saying that it's widespread, right? So how many doctors have gotten sanctioned for it? Oh, zero? None. Not one. Zero? Fucking zero. Weird, dude. So you're just lying, right? Because you need to make claim. Generally you have to fucking back things up with data if you just say shit, right? No, these fraudulent doctors. Really? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I'm watching this and I'm going, how would they possibly be able? Because here's the thing. There's no fucking voter that would support that. There's no voter. No voter in the world would support that. You're like, just look at our situation. You're telling me that you would support the government coming into my house and going, well, I know both of you guys had negative effects and a doctor told you that it's dangerous to vaccinate your kid, but we don't care. Fuck you. You have to get fully vaccinated anyway. You're like, are you sure? Is that the hill you want to die on? Because you will. Like, you know, there's no rational person who would fucking argue that. And yet, so I'm watching the state like work itself out. You've got literally tens of thousands of women out there screaming like these interviews where you're like, if they seriously do this with this amount of energy, like at the Capitol, and women with their kids, like, and you're just like, fuck you, I don't care what you guys think. If they actually pass this is the most psychopathic thing ever. On top of the fact that we're gonna have to leave California, like we're gonna have to move away. My dad's there, his wife, my mom, her dude, my brother, his wife, their kids, like our cousins, they hang out, they have 3 kids. Our kids are best friends with them. Like, we're gonna have to leave the state if they pass this. There's no fucking, I'm not gonna go put my daughter in danger. There's no fucking way. Now, I watched them resolve this at the state level, and guess what? 100% of the Republicans in the state went up and they were like, you can't do this. You cannot fucking do this. You can't do this. And guess what happened? 100% of the Democrats voted for it. All of them, without exception. And they did it. You should have seen these interviews with these Democrat politicians. I'm not even going to say that it was all corruption. They literally were like, they had been so brainwashed by the media that like they're like, oh God, these anti-vaxxers. And you're like, okay, you're talking about a mom whose kid got, like, when kids get vaccine injured, it's not like our kid that got sick. Like, they get put in comas sometimes. Like, I know a guy whose kid went into a coma and then was having seizures for weeks and weeks, or 6 months afterwards. Okay, he got his medical exemption and fucking taken away. Okay, his kid was having seizures for 6 months. This is my brother's best friend. They took that away. They're like, no, you got to fully vaccinate. Okay, and I would imagine, as you know, like if you're looking at me and you're like, gosh, where are his politics? Like, I've always been an independent, but you could probably guess after that experience which way I started leaning, where it was like, wow, so one side supported my ability to not poison my daughter and stay living in the same state as my family, and the other one unanimously voted for me to have to leave. We live in Texas now. Anybody ever think like, geez, why did he move to Texas? I'm like, oh, he must have just hated mask mandates. No, I moved to Texas because California mandated that I poison my fucking kid, actually. Okay, so if you want to talk to me about fucking vaccine mandates, Bill de Blasio can go fuck himself. Okay, sorry. And you're going to and so it's literally like mandating a non-FDA approved vaccine is no different than invalidating medical exemptions for kids. You're like, okay, like I get it. Like, I know COVID's dangerous, but can I evaluate how dangerous this is? Like, what if you had a bad reaction to a vaccine yourself, and they're like, no, you have to take it. You're like, and the FDA hasn't approved it. No, but you have to. Why? Because we said so. Why? I'm not like I'm 22 years old, right? Like, there's essentially no chance of me dying. I don't understand why. Well, because we said so, and you need to protect everyone else. But why not? They can just go get the shot. Like, anybody who's actually in danger, they can go get the shot. Well, not everyone can get the shot. Really? Who can't get it? And of those people, don't you think that those people should probably be living in a bubble anyway and not be going out in public and sitting in a restaurant? I mean, right? Right? So what are we doing here? You want to know what we're doing? Pharmaceutical companies doing a little bit of calculations and going, well, we got the Democratic Party locked down. We can get them to pass fucking anything. So if you think it's cool that they're doing mandatory vaccinations and you think that this is really like, this is a good thing, good for you. Good for you. I'm sure you have the shots, and that's, I don't like, good that I don't care if you get the shots. Good. My problem is with people telling people what to do. If you tell people, oh, these things are poison, don't go get them, you're an idiot. Okay. But if you say, hey man, you need to go get it, you're a fucking idiot. And you don't know shit about vaccines. You don't understand the way the systems work. Well, now you do. So, if a company has absolutely no liability whatsoever, right? Like, is that problematic for you? Again, I get flu shot. Like, I get vaccinated. I have all my, or at least I do flu shots and shit. I'm not like some fucking, some hyperbolic lunatic. But the level with which the media can poison a conversation is absolutely unbelievable. And this is the number, I'm telling you, of all of the issues I've ever seen covered by the mainstream media where they were trying to push a conversation one direction, this is the best they've ever done. It's unreal. Like, it's literally unreal. You look at the way that people talk about vaccines as if like they know shit, and you're like, how could a person possibly be convinced that they know anything about this? It's seriously unbelievable. It's literally like a person read an article about like hot rodding and then screaming in someone's face about how to build a fucking V12 engine that's going. It's like, dude, you read an article. You don't know fucking anything. You know nothing. Like, you don't know anything. Shut the fuck up, man. Seriously, shut the fuck up, man. Because yeah, if they can do that and they can convince people that anyone who has an opinion where they're like, oh, I'm just going to wait it out. Like, I'm going to wait it out. That they're in a position to yell at that person or have an opinion on what they do. You're brainwashed, dude. That's it. Anyway, so, yeah. Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell. Peace.